It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Doran.
Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran today. Congressman Tom Reed is our guest. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us on, as always, Brian. It's always good to hear your voice, too.
Congressman Reed, and you were there for this at the hearing on Friday. Your friend, Congressman Paul Ryan, got into it with the head of the IRS.
Told us on May that you were going to give us all of Lois Lerner's emails, and you learned in February that this crashed.
I did not learn in February it was a crash, and we told you on Monday.
I'm not asking you a question. I'm just making a statement.
My apologies.
You are the Internal Revenue Service. You can reach into the lives of hardworking taxpayers, and with a phone call, an email, or a letter, you can turn their lives upside down. You ask taxpayers to hang on to 7 years of their personal tax information in case they're ever audited, and you can't keep 6 months' worth of employee emails?
Congressman Paul Ryan there wanting to know about the missing hard drive and the missing 67,000 IRS emails. Congressman Reed.
Yeah, I couldn't believe, sitting in that hearing room and being on the panel right in front of Paul Ryan and watching the commissioner first, not even apologize for the fact that they lost the emails, not even to try to give an explanation whether he was empathetic with the committee and saying, this is what happened, we're trying to fix it, we're still trying to find the emails. It was a definitive, we don't have them, we're never going to get them, and I'm not going to apologize for anything. You talk about an administration that says it wants to be transparent and open with Congress and with the American people. This is an affront to our civil liberty that the IRS is targeting conservative groups based on ideology. We need to know who knew what when and what was being said between the powers to be. And I'll tell you, it was appalling to see the IRS try to double down and say, essentially say to the American people, well, the dog ate my homework, so just believe me. That's ludicrous. And I tell you that we're not done with this. This is going to continue to get deeper and deeper because once you tell one lie, you get massed up into a tangle of webs of lies. And I'll tell you, it all will come unraveling pretty soon here, in my opinion, as we dig deeper and deeper into this.
This is an amazing excerpt from Friday's hearing. This is Congressman Dave Camp and the IRS head, Costigan.
There not a single email has been lost since the start of this investigation. Every email has been preserved that we have. We have produced or will produce by the end of this.
You don't think the time period between January 2009 and April 2011 is relevant to this investigation?
It is a very relevant time.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. The letter we received from the IRS on Friday the 13th admitted that Lerner emails were lost for this 2.5-year period.
They were lost off lost off her hard drive.
What did you make of that contradictory answer, Congressman Reed?
He's trying to spin it. He's trying to nuance his statement. If you said since the investigation began, what they're talking about is, since he got involved here recently as the new commissioner of the IRS, I don't think any emails that when he was at the head have been lost. But what we're talking about is the IRS as an agency, and what we're talking about are the emails in the period of time from 2009 to 2010 when this targeting was going on, when Lois Lerner was directing, at a minimum, Lois Lerner, maybe people above her, and that's where the open questions still remain. What was she saying? Who was she talking to? Who was she directing? We've seen lie after lie out of the IRS. We saw, this is a rogue group of people in Cincinnati. That's a lie. That's not true. It's just not the case. They were targeting non-conservative groups just as aggressively as the conservative groups. That's proven to be not true. It's just...
Congressman, this could have been one of the most astounding sound bites from Costigan.
Your letter describes the Lois Lerner emails as being unrecoverable.
Correct.
But fails to mention where the damaged hard drive is today. Do you know where the actual hard drive is that crashed in 2011?
I'm advised the actual hard drive, after it was determined that it was dysfunctional and that with experts no emails could be retrieved, was recycled and destroyed in the normal process.
So was it physically destroyed?
That's my understanding.
So was it melted down? Do you know?
I have no idea what the recycler does with it. This was 3 years ago.
Well, and just because you lose a hard drive, where are the servers? Where are the backups? And you're the IRS. You're the Internal Revenue Service agency for the entire United States government, and you're telling me you don't have backup systems, you don't have the capability? What about, it's ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense, and that's where, I couldn't believe, and I think Paul Ryan summed it up last. He goes, I just don't believe you. and they're trying to say, well, we're trying to be honest. It's just it's not. It doesn't pass the smell test. And I'll tell you, to go and run this type of play that they're trying to play on the American people, I don't think will hunt. I don't think it's not something the American people are accepting and shouldn't accept because it just doesn't make sense.
But they say they're going to turn all the emails over.
And now they're saying they're going to give us all the emails. And when they knew about the loss of the lowest learner emails, they didn't report to Congress. They waited. They waited from about April of this year, as early as potentially March, and didn't even give it to Congress until June. And then, Brian, even on top of that, we, in a follow-up question, go, okay, well, you lost her lowest learner's emails and hard drive. Have you lost any other hard drives or emails? In response to a question, they said there's 5 other employees that are involved in this situation that their hard drives are now somehow crashed and missing, and they're missing emails from those hard drives.
Congressman Reed, please repeat that. 5 hard drives are missing?
Yeah, 5 hard drives. So we asked a follow-up question when they initially, they sat on it, and then they gave it to us. And then they, we followed up a question. Okay, well, you lost lowest learner's hard drive and all their emails. What about these other employees that we're looking at? There's 82 that we're looking at that kind of seem to be in this web of cover-up that we're uncovering as we speak. And they said, well, by the way, we've also potentially lost 5 other employees' hard drives and all their emails that are involved in this situation. And the response was, well, we didn't feel we should give that to you because you never asked the question. You know what? If I'm the IRS, if I were on their side, I would be reaching out to Congress. I'd be reaching out to us on the committee and saying, look, this is what's going on. This is the play-by-play. Want you to keep informed as to what we're doing because we're trying to be as transparent and gain the credibility of the American taxpayer back. When you have to say, well, if you ask the right question, will we give you the information? That smacks of lack of transparency and cover-up, in my opinion.
What about the liberal media largely ignoring the IRS story?
Well, as we get further and further in this, and I'll tell you, it's one of those things I think eventually the news media is going to have to latch onto because I was doing some analysis. You take the Watergate situation. There was about 3 million plus seconds of video or audio tape that was released, but there was 18 and a half minutes, which is what is that, about 3,000 seconds worth of audio tape that comes up missing. And for the sake of history, 18 and a half minutes of the Watergate tapes is what we're all talking about for generations. I don't know if it's at the same level here with the IRS, but I'll tell you, it smacks of cover-up. It smacks of manipulation. And the bottom line is remember what we're talking about. We are talking about the Internal Revenue Service using its powers, using its influence to target Americans based on their ideology, what they believe. That is an affront on our civil liberties. That is an affront on our freedoms as Americans. And to have a government agency to go down this path, to me, is appalling. It's scary. It's frustrating. And I will tell you, we can't accept it. And at some point in time, I think the news media will latch onto this story in a vengeance because they've also done things like surveil the Associated Press reporters. They've tapped into their phone lines at the Capitol. There's some serious questions in the media world that are starting to be asked, and let's just keep uncovering the truth because it's all done for the benefit of protecting us as Americans and our freedoms.
Congressman Reed, wanted to ask you, and this is somewhat related to the IRS situation, the Justice Department is setting up a new domestic terrorism executive committee. From all reports, it looks like the committee is going to be focusing only on right-wingers. Attorney General Eric Holder said the committee will be going after those with anti-government or racial prejudice. Now, this has a number of conservative websites and writers concerned that only conservative groups will be targeted and targeted unnecessarily.
Whenever you have that type of ideological fence being utilized by government agencies, government representatives for political purposes, or for other agendas other than executing and enforcing the laws of the country, obviously I have concern. I have great concern. Even last week, I have concern as to what they were doing with the trademarks for the Washington Redskins. I mean, even if you agree that is an unacceptable term, and I can appreciate and empathize with people who feel that way, but at the end of the day, can the government come in and say, you know what? Yeah, I know you had that trademark, that name for decades upon decades, but we in the government are going to decide what is acceptable and what is not, and your freedom of speech is irrelevant. That's a chilling position this government has taken, and the administration under President Obama, and the big government mindset that they bring to Washington D.C. is something I fight every day, because I don't think it's the right path for the future of America. If you care about our kids and our grandkids so that they have the freedoms and opportunities that we have had as generations in America, you need to stand up and say, you know what, government, it may be going way too far, and let us be free. Let us trust us as individuals rather than ask us as individuals to trust the government.
Talking with Congressman Tom Reed on the Newsmaker Show. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Dorn. When we get back, we'll talk about immigration, college loans, Iraq, and the VA. Stay with us. Back on the Newsmaker Show, Brian O'Neill talking with Congressman Tom Reed. Congressman, Iraq. The president says he wants to send in combat troops, not for combat purposes, but to go over as advisors. Your take on that, and also, what did you think of the president saying to the 2 Republican and 2 Democrat congressional leaders he did not need their okay to go into Iraq?
Well, I think we're stronger as a nation whenever the president will reach out to Congress, communicate with Congress, and when we talk about engaging on a military level in an act of war, that we in Congress participate and are involved in that process by way of approving it or at least debating it and weighing in on it. But the bottom line, with Iraq, what I'm seeing out of this administration, and I think you touched upon it, to send 300 military advisors in, the question I ask is, one, what is in our national security interest for going into Iraq or for being involved in Iraq? And second, Mr. President, as our commander-in-chief, the lead military official, what is the plan? What is the mission? What is the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And I'll tell you, I just don't have a lot of confidence that the administration and the president in particular is laying out that type of vision and mission for the American people. And that's where I really seriously question, what the plan is and where we're going in Iraq. And I was also amazed over the last couple of weeks. There was actual indications coming out of the different representatives over at the White House that they were going to reach out to Iran, communicate with Iran, and stand with Iran in this situation. How could we stand as allies in a military situation with Iran? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, that to me is something that shows that this administration, this White House, doesn't have an idea or a plan to how to deal with the Middle East.
Congressman, ABC News brought up this question. What happens if U.S. troops there in Iraq run into Iranian soldiers? ABC described that as a potential awkward situation. That's putting it mildly. Any thoughts on that question, Congressman?
That's exactly it. I mean, on one side of the border, I guess we're opposing Iran. On the other side of the border, we're standing with them. And I'll tell you, you talk to representatives of countries in that area of the world, and they're just scratching their head. They're just like, we don't get it. We don't understand. In one situation, you're killing these folks. In the second situation, you're standing with them and fighting the other folks. It's an inconsistency. It's a lack of comprehension, in my opinion. It's a lack of having a vision and a policy that's consistent with how to deal with the Middle East situation. And we just haven't seen it. I started with Libya. It's in Syria, how the president engaged on these fronts, and Egypt on top of it. It's just very troublesome when the commander-in-chief does not have that clear vision and is articulated to the American people. This is why we, as Americans, need to be interested in this, because of our national security interests of X, Y, Z. That hasn't been articulated, and we're going to accomplish and protect that national security interest this way, and that hasn't been laid out by the president. And I'll tell you, that's something I think the president needs to do, and I know he was going to take last weekend to try to make a decision, but I guess he needs another weekend or maybe another week to try to figure it out.
Moving on to the VA scandal, the Wall Street Journal hit Congress hard with a story that appeared in the Wall Street Journal online last week that said, quote, "The Veterans Affairs scandal has exposed a failing bureaucracy, so naturally Congress's solution is to give the same bureaucracy more money. The underreported story is that taxpayers could end up paying $50 billion each year so Congress can claim to have solved the problem," unquote. That's from the Wall Street Journal. They go on to say that there's a Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator John McCain bill that would authorize the VA to spend $500 million to hire additional VA providers and over $200 million to lease 26 medical facilities. Now, on past shows here on WLEA, you've said that you're open to the idea, Congressman, of the VA getting outside doctors and outside medical help, but you also sent out a press release warning that the VA had spent a lot of taxpayer money and already had a very large staff nationwide, and that the bigger staff and bigger money being thrown at this problem was not going to solve it. So wondering where you stood on the Sanders and McCain legislation.
Yeah, obviously giving a blank check to the VA to try to solve this problem is something that we're not interested in supporting. As you pointed out, and as we pointed out, the VA funding has been up 252%. Staffing levels, I believe, are up 56%. It's not a resource question in my mind. It's a fundamental government philosophy question. The VA, I think, is emblematic of a bigger question. Is government the right place for our health care to be delivered in America? And, it brings you into the national conversation about, my opponent in this race is supportive of nationalized, single-payer, government-run health care. And I think the VA is kind of that canary in the coal mine to say that if we go down that path, we're going to have the problems that the VA are seeing. A huge bureaucracy, price control being the tool to try to contain costs, which doesn't work, in my opinion, in the long term. And you get real people suffering real harms, and even, we have 40 vets who died in this situation, in my opinion. So I think, one of the things that we supported in the VA bill that came out of the House was a reallocation of the resources to make sure they're going to the right priorities. But there was also a critical piece there that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and that is first, before any type of resources are reprogrammed or dedicated to this problem, there needs to be a top-down, bottom-up review of the VA to see how sick the patient is, to see exactly where the VA is failing, what are the problems that need to be addressed. And that's why I think one of the solutions that will come out of this long-term is one that I support, and that is to empower veterans by giving them a choice. Give them a choice as to what provider, what health care they want to go and receive their health care from. That means they could go to their private doctors, they could go to the VA center if that's working for them. They get the choice. I'm about empowering individuals and, most importantly, our veterans to control their health care decisions going forward.
On the topic of immigration, your thoughts on House Speaker John Boehner asking President Obama to send the National Guard down to the southern border states?
Yeah, we have a real problem. The real problem is that the message has been delivered. That come to America now because this is your window of opportunity to cross the border and then potentially become a citizen because of the rhetoric that's coming out of Washington, D.C., in particular, the President of the United States. And that's a real problem because now you got kids. You got thousands of kids that are there without parents, without family, that are just sitting on our borders. And what are you going to do about that? These are kids. My heart goes out to them. I care about kids just like every other American does. But what we need to do is we need to first stop this problem from growing and send the message that, our borders are not porous, that they're not open. And it also raises the question, we have to deal with border security. How can you go into immigration reform when you got a border that is as porous as we're seeing demonstrated by just kids walking across the border and stacking up here without their parents and their brothers or sisters being there with them? To me, that's symptomatic of one of the fundamental problems we got to cover in immigration reform is how we're going to secure these borders.
What about that press release, and this is moving on to the college loan story. Your opponent, Martha Robertson, the Tompkins County Democrat, put out a press release saying that you look out for the rich and ignore the struggling college students because you would not support the college loan legislation in the House.
The release, I'm very familiar with this release that you're referring to, Brian. This is something that we're going to see, I think, time and time again from my opponent, who's running against me with that extreme ethical liberal agenda that she carries with her. And she's going to use whatever procedural tricks that she can out of the House. But first and foremost, let me be clear. When we talk about students, as someone who racked up student loan debt and still pays that debt off on a monthly basis, I empathize with kids coming out of college. We got to drive these costs down. That's why I've been supportive of allowing kids to refinance their loans as many times as possible to take advantage of the lower interest rates that are out there. I'm a big fan of the work-off programs where kids, if they're in certain areas where they're serving underutilized or underserviced parts of America, they get a credit that can be applied to their student loan program. So there's a lot of things that we support, but she is turning to what is going to happen in D.C., and it's actually, it was just a falsehood, in my opinion, because it was all procedure and had nothing to do with what she was trying to claim it was doing. And, we'll deal with that. I know the bombs are coming, but that's fine, because we'll let our record and how we care for people and trying to bring what we believe is the right philosophy, where you empower individuals, and the role of government is just provide people with an opportunity to succeed. You can't, as a government, guarantee everyone's going to succeed, but we can guarantee as a government, rightfully, that people have an opportunity to succeed on their own merits. And that, to me, is the better philosophy for the future of our great country.
And it goes without saying, Martha Robertson is always welcome to come on the show to respond. Congressman, do you have a quick moment to talk about Obamacare?
Sure, go right ahead.
Bloomberg News says the second in command at the Obamacare health exchanges is going to be United Health Group's Andy Slavitt.
I don't know Mr. Slavitt. I don't know his background. I obviously know of United Healthcare and the role they play in the health insurance market in America. As we deal with Obamacare, it's just, again, it's big government. As my opponent, who says Obamacare is good, but it's not good enough, and she supports that complete government-run, nationalized, single-payer healthcare system that she believes is the true solution to America's healthcare problem. I just respectfully disagree with that with my opponent. And what we're seeing with Obamacare is just the tip of the iceberg. This big government policy, you saw it with the website. You're going to see it as premiums continue to go up. We have to get to the root issue, and that's what I'm all about. And that's like, how are we going to contain these healthcare costs? And how are we going to drive healthcare costs down? I think you do that by empowering individuals and empowering doctors, not insurance carriers, not bureaucrats out of Washington, D.C.
And final question for you, Congressman Tom Reed. CBS reports that many Americans are now paying $100 a month for health care because of Obamacare. But CBS raised the question in that article from the critics, are other taxpayers picking up the bill for those paying $100 a month?
Absolutely. I mean, and don't be misled. When they say that Obamacare is free or that these subsidies are going to drive down the cost and make health insurance affordable, well, what are subsidies? Those are nothing but hardworking taxpayer dollars. So there are hardworking taxpayers, primarily in the middle class. That's where the bill is mostly footed, that are paying these subsidies, that are paying the resources to the federal government to provide these resources. That's where I think at the end of the day, what you're going to see, don't be fooled by, we're providing subsidies to lower costs. No, you're providing another person's hardworking taxpayer dollar that's gone to Washington, D.C. and diverting it for your own purpose. To me, that is something that we need to fight against. We need, again, power individuals, let them earn their money, keep as much money as possible in their own pockets, and let them decide. Let them control their future, not some bureaucrat out of Washington, D.C.
Down to just a minute, Congressman. Any final thoughts before we go?
Well, I just appreciate all the support. And I'll tell you, we are seeing abuse after abuse out of Washington, D.C., and we're trying to highlight it, spotlight it. Anything that you hear out there in the listening world, our door is always open. We want to be as accessible and listening to you, because I think truly at the end of the day, to represent people, that's why we do all the town halls we do. You have to listen to people. And I'll tell you, the best and brightest ideas come from the common sense of our area of the world, and that's what I'm trying to bring to Washington, D.C.
Congressman Tom Reed, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brian, as always. God bless and take care. God bless and take care. God bless and take care.